So many times people say, oh, just listen to your body. But if we've never given people the permission to listen to their body, how are they going to know if someone's just always saying, do this, do this, do this, without taking that beat of what are you feeling? How does that feel? Does that feel like something you want to go deeper into? Does that feel like something you want to pull back?
Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited because we have Deb here and we're going to be talking all about prenatal yoga and just all about the benefits and how it can ultimately help you with your labor. So welcome, Deb, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this. We haven't had someone come on and talk about prenatal yoga yet. So this is such an interesting topic. So just to get started, can you just tell us a little bit about you and then kind of how you got into prenatal yoga?
My name's Deb Flashenberg. I'm the founder and director of Prenatal Yoga Center in New York City. Although we're now in New York, we're also online since we're still in this COVID situation. I started teaching yoga a little over 20 years ago. And I was teaching a style of yoga that I didn't really care for. I learned it very quickly. I was teaching Bikram. I don't know if you know Bikram, but it's very dogmatic. Like, this is how you do it. It's a script. And while I was teaching that, I realized that was not quite the right fit for me. So I remember I was talking to some people and I was like, I think I need something more individual. I want to be able to look at the person and look at what they need and hear from them what they need. And so someone mentioned prenatal, and this was back in like 2000, 2001, and there was not a lot of prenatal at that time. So I found a course. I signed up, was out in Seattle, and it was 100 hours, and I jumped out and I did it. I had no idea. I was 26, 27, like far from having kids. I was a musical theater performer. I have a degree in musical theater from a conservatory. So like nothing about babies, nothing about business. And then from there, I just started to get more involved. And there was a turning point for me while I was teaching prenatal that one of my students was doing her fellowship at one of the hospitals in New York, and she invited me to watch some births. And that was a real change for me. That's when I saw what births were like in the hospital. All I had seen, again, none of my friends, as a performer in your 20s, most people are not in New York City are not thinking, let's start a family. So none of my friends had kids. It just wasn't something I had seen. All my understanding of birth was from the movies and from TV, and clearly not realistic. And so when I saw birth in the hospital, I was dumbfounded, and I was sad, and I was disappointed. And I realized that what I was teaching was just yoga modifications. And what I wanted to teach was an understanding of how the yoga can prepare someone for birth, and then what was really happening in the hospitals. So I left that day of seeing births, and I enrolled in a doula program. So this was maybe like at this point, maybe 2004. And it was before doulas were known as they are now. And so I jumped into that, and then I got my certification as Lamaze teacher. And then I went down to this place called The Farm, and I did a midwifery program there, midwifery assistant program. And then I kept layering on. Throughout that time, I did other yoga trainings and a pelvic floor yoga training. And there was a turning point that I want yoga to be about people taking control of their body, of having autonomy, instead of just saying, sure, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. So a long story short, that's who I am. That's how I became that's what I do now. I really help people advocate for themselves. And Prenatal Yoga Center has been around for this summer, I believe, will be 19 years. And my goal is to help support people make choices that's best for them in their pregnancy.
Wow, that's amazing. And I love hearing like the journey stories of how people got into, what their main, focus is now. Cause it's so interesting just kind of how different things kind of come your way.
Yeah, it's not what I expected. I mean, I really had no idea that I would end up working in this manner. I eventually had two kids of my own, and that was also quite eye-opening. But as I started yoga, I had no idea that I'd end up focusing in prenatal and really loving the work. It really fires me up.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for anyone listening, because I think people are, a lot of people do yoga for exercise or meditation to kind of tie it into it, for kind of like for that me time. So what is the main difference between your typical kind of yoga that many of us are used to or have seen, and compare it to prenatal yoga? Like, what's the difference there?
Some of it's also going to have to do with the individual teacher's approach and methodology. So I'll speak for myself. There's definitely some overlap. Like we're still doing warrior one and warrior two and downward dog, so there's still asana is still the foundation. But what I think really sets prenatal yoga, especially what I teach at Prenatal Yoga Center, apart is the intention. It's not just, okay, we're going to do asana and it's going to be great to quiet our mind and get connected to our body. It's so much richer and deeper when we use the asana almost as a tool or as a vehicle to get a little bit deeper. So we can look at the asana on so many levels. So the yoga poses themselves, on the most superficial level, they're going to feel great in the body. So we can open and strengthen. We can address the daily aches and pains of someone that's pregnant. We know that the spine changes. We know that's going to lead to lower back pain and often upper back and neck. We know that the hamstrings can get tight and we can lose strength in the glutes. So we can use the physical asana to try to help the pregnant person feel more comfortable in their body and address their aches and pains. We can also look at the asanas that we choose and think, how is this adding to the balance of the pregnant body? So what I learned from my own first birth and as a doula and throughout I'm such a learning geek. Like I'm doing spinning babies and I keep adding more information. But what I've learned through those processes is we need to have the bony pelvis, the actual pelvis itself, balanced, meaning the two innominate bones in the sacrum and the pubis. The pubis is part of the front part of the pelvis. And then we need to have the pelvic floor muscles and the pelvic ligaments. If those are well balanced in the psoas and they don't hold a lot of tension, the way baby descends and rotates through the pelvis will be more functional and easier. If there's imbalance, we have tight psoas, we have tight pelvic floor, the sacrum is unstable or asymmetric, that can prevent baby from descending and rotating. So then we can look at how are we using the poses to add balance and create support. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to work into this pose. Why am I choosing this pose? What poses can help lengthen the pelvic floor? What poses can release tension? So then we use the asana in that way to help support the pregnant body. We can also use the asana to encourage safe discomfort. And I feel like a lot of people take childbirth ed, which I'm all for as a Lamaze teacher, I'm all for that. But it's one thing to theorize, oh, when I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to breathe, or I'm going to use an image, or I'm going to, horse lips, or just drop my shoulders. And that's in your head. But can we use the pose to create safe discomfort so that we can take those coping skills and actually practice them? It's through the repetitive practice that they're then more available. If you're used to, okay, I'm uncomfortable, so I cycle and my thighs are often burning. And instead of just getting tighter and more in my head, I now know, okay, relax into it and your body's going to work more efficiently. Mm-hmm. So can we create that repetition and habit through actually experiencing discomfort? So when someone's in labor, no matter what their labor looks like, can they call upon those coping skills that they've created? And then we also can look at it as autonomy. I'm going to offer all these options of poses, and I want someone to make the choice. So in a typical yoga class, the teacher is not usually offering, oh, try this. So if you want to stay longer and enjoy something here, it's usually, I'm teaching this and you're following along. And what I'll say to my students is use this as a chance to explore. I'm going to make suggestions and you make decisions. And if they can start on the mat, really making decisions about themselves, it can help find that voice when they're in labor and maybe things aren't feeling right, or they're not agreeing necessarily with how things are unwinding or being introduced, that they have that, they've exercised that muscle to take ownership of their body. So the yoga practice is really the foundation with so many layers to it. And again, I don't know how all prenatal practices are, but that's how I like to approach it.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that it's like a connection between your mind and body and understanding what works for you, because yeah, like you said, there's, I feel like there's a lot of fear with working out, especially while pregnant, or, moving your body. Can I do this? Can I do that? So I think it's so important that you teach to listen to your body and to understand, what your body is telling you in those moments.
Yeah. And I feel like so many times people say, oh, just listen to your body. But if we've never given people the permission to listen to their body, how are they going to know if someone's just always saying, do this, do this, do this, without taking that beat of, what are you feeling? How does that feel? Does that feel like something you want to go deeper into? Does that feel like something you want to pull back? A lot of times I'm so in this category, I'm in my head so much, and yet I have to start to learn to listen to my body. So yeah, that's something that I think is really a gift to people that step on the mat.
Definitely. And so, at what point in pregnancy do you recommend women start to try prenatal yoga?
I say immediately. I do remember years and years and years ago, I had a student. I'm actually surprised she did not bring the pregnancy test. She's like, I just peed on the stick this morning. Like I would have. And then I got to know the student through 2 other pregnancies. I'm actually surprised she didn't put in a baggie and be like, look what I've got.
To prove I'm here. Yeah.
So really, it's early. I mean, sometimes people in their first trimester will start around, like when they find out, around 4 to 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And usually the nausea and fatigue hits around 6 to 8ish weeks. So they may have to pull back, but if they're feeling great, go for it. And then someone can stay as long as they want. This week alone, I had somebody came on Tuesday. It was her due date. That she came again yesterday, a day past her due date. And then on Monday, I was surprised, but I had somebody that was 41 weeks and 5 days. It's her fourth child. All her babies are late like that. But so you can really go, you can start as soon as you'd like, and you can go as far as you'd like, as long as you're feeling good.
That's
And I
awesome.
can say that sometimes you don't feel good, and sometimes you feel crappy and you show up because you want to feel better.
Right. And do you think there's like benefits to, like, let's say, someone's not pregnant right now, but they're like, I'm trying to conceive, or I'm kind of in that space where maybe soon we're going to be in that, space. Do you think there's a benefit to starting to practice, your regular yoga now to kind of get into it? Or what do you kind of recommend for people in that space?
That's a really great question. And I've had students ask me about that they want to be around that pregnant energy. And I think it's a tough one. If someone's been having a hard time conceiving, then putting themselves in a group of pregnant people may not feel healthy mentally. So I
Mhm.
think back when I had a miscarriage between 2 of my kids, and I remember being in class teaching, going through that. I didn't share it at the time with the students, but it felt emotionally hard. Like, why me? Why is this happening? And if somebody has had either pregnancy loss or infertility, or again, just trying to conceive has been difficult, I don't think a prenatal class emotionally will serve them. I think it might actually take them into a darker space, kind of like that. Why are they pregnant and I'm not? I do think a yoga practice can be fantastic if someone, and I will also say that conception yoga, like trying to conceive yoga, there is a such thing. That is not my specialty. But what I do know of it is you don't want to overly heat. So I would say if someone is in that space where they're trying to conceive, yoga can be really supportive to the body, but that they may want to look if there's anything particular. If there's been no problems, like they're just jumping in to try, then I think continuing their regular practice is probably fine.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good to know. Do you find while doing yoga, it helps with like the recovery postpartum as
Hmm.
well? Or are
Yeah.
there kind of classes that you offer kind of into that postpartum space?
Oh, I love postnatal yoga. So we teach pre and post,
Okay.
and postnatal. It is such a fun class. We do it twice a week. It's one of my favorites. One, I get to see them on the other side, and I hear about what's going on. But we really look. The prenatal body and the postnatal body are completely different, and they need completely different servings. So for the prenatal, where we're looking about creating that balance and support to help with the birth, and we're focusing on the coping mechanisms. On the postnatal, it's a totally different focus. So now we're looking at, all right, now they're on their road out of the whole labyrinth into birth. Now they're heading back out into parenthood. And there's different demands. So where you had the aches and pains of pregnancy, now you have the aches and pains of caring for a baby. So whether you're breast or bottle feeding, holding a baby and feeding, that's a lot on the arm, on the shoulder, on the wrist. So we take that in consideration. You're often looking at the baby, so there's pain in the neck. If you're wearing your baby or holding your baby, that can cause a lot of strain in the back. If going just through pregnancy, the back muscles have atrophied, the spine has changed. So we have to restructure and re-support that. We look at the pelvic floor. We don't want to assume just because someone had a birth that their pelvic floor is wide open. Sometimes they actually come out of a vaginal birth and those muscles contract. So we're looking, do we need to soften? Do we need to strengthen? What's going on with their abs? Is there diastasis? So we work with the transverse abdominals. Sometimes people get what I call mom butt, where their butt's kind of flat. And we want to have that posterior chain. So I actually find it really exciting to work with the postpartum because they're coming at this physically in a different space. But this is where we also get really into a mental space where a lot of new parents are extremely depleted. And so we need to put in more restorative poses. Even though they come like, work me out, I still need to interweave restorative. And we also have to understand that it's a massive identity and life change. So again, how can we speak to the emotional state that someone's showing up? And especially now during COVID, sometimes people are stuck more inside. Now things are opening up more, but for a while, people are stuck more inside and they may not be able to get help and have family come by or just get out of the house as much. So it can also feel very isolating. So we attend to really the whole person, the emotional side of new parenthood, and re-supporting as they emerge out into that new identity as a parent. It's a fun class.
Yeah, that's awesome. You kind of mentioned COVID and how, that kind of affected your business because you were,
Oh
in
my
a
gosh,
studio
yeah.
there. Yeah. And so how did you guys kind of, I was listening to one of your other podcasts and you're kind of talking about the online classes. So yeah, kind of talk to us about how you transitioned through these different stages of the pandemic and to still help these moms.
Oh, I have to say, I'm more overwhelmed coming out of COVID, to be honest, than going in. So that was 2020 of January. So it starts by the fact that my husband and I listen to NPR like fanatics. It's always playing in our house while I'm making breakfast or something. So I'd heard about COVID early, in like end of December, January in China. And we're like, oh no. And then we heard it coming on the West Coast. And being in New York City, like, there's a lot of travel there. I'm like, it's going to come to New York. What are we going to do? So I went on to Amazon and bought a ton of disinfectants. But then I also started recognizing that my students, this is back early March before everything really closed down. So early March, I had announced, because I started to see numbers dwindle mid-February, people were afraid. So I already started hybrid classes where I brought my laptop into the yoga studio and I had some people there on Zoom, some people in the studio, and I was kind of doing a little in between. So I got used to that. And so when it was time to go straight to online, I'd had the structure set up. I already had Zoom set up. I knew how to use it. I was very confident with that. As a former performer, I'm very comfortable in front of the camera. I already had a headset, like a mic. I had the software already ready. Our mind body is what we use for our data. So I knew how to organize it. So it was actually pretty easy going into COVID and lockdown because I had known I went hybrid to online. The tricky part is now as we reemerge, because for the good or bad, and I'm thrilled, I'm honored that we've created a beautiful online community that almost half at this point of our active members in the last 3 months. I did some I'm always about data, not drama. So I looked at the data because I get very dramatic. I looked at the data and about half of our active participants in class in the last 3 months are not in New York City. So I need to keep that going because it would be ridiculous to stop this growing community online. So now we're slowly creeping back into the studio. So we're going to have some classes that are just online, some classes that are just in person in the studio, and then some classes that are in person while live streaming. We're calling this the hybrid. So the business end is a little tricky. I will admit it's a little anxiety producing, because it's like a new normal. And what are people comfortable with, and what are pregnant people comfortable with? And from what people have said, and maybe you know this too in your community, it can be nice just to pop Zoom on and be like, great, I'm in my space. I'm going to take class. I don't have to travel. I don't have to worry about, especially if it's a new parent or a parent with another child, they don't have to worry about a babysitter. Yes, I feel like we're in this whole new normal and this whole new business mindset.
Yes, totally. Yeah, we always say about we have like an online face group community, and we probably had maybe 4,000 before the pandemic. And with last year, everyone's at home, everyone wants some community and to meet people. And, it's even harder to just, especially if you're in a new town, to go meet someone. And so now we hit like 10,000 last summer, and now we're at like 16. And so I think it's just people have just, really craved that online connection. And it's cool. It's like I think you talked about this on your podcast too, where one of the benefits to all this is that we're kind of realizing there's areas to reach that we weren't thinking about, like, virtual, like all these virtual meetups and virtual hangouts. Like now in our group, we'll do some virtual hangouts just to kind of see other people face to face that might not have friends or family, that they can see. So it's kind of cool in that it's brought us thinking different ways. And okay, how can we connect even though you're miles and miles away?
I've loved that, because I have now worked with people that I never would have had the chance. Like when we do teacher training, we just had someone sign up for our training in Brussels, and I already know we have someone in Spain. Like that would not have, they could have come to New York, but
Right.
that adds an expense. But it's introduced different friendships that may never have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find that really exciting, because parenthood is hard. Pregnancy is hard. We're not meant to do this by ourselves. Mm-hmm. So just to be able to, especially if you're just had a baby, or maybe you don't want to be out and about, just be able to go on, like be in your comfort and go online and connect. That can make such a difference when someone's really feeling isolated and lost.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like what you said, it's like we could have connected to people far before, like I have been doing, some of these interviews that, that are farther, like I've interviewed some people in like England, but yeah, it's kind of like, this has kind of brought like, oh, wow, like the world really is our oyster. We really can, reach out even more and connect. So it's cool to look at it through that lens and just be like, let's connect. We're kind of all in this same boat. We're kind of figuring out this new normal.
Yeah. The one thing I'd say is my kids have gotten used to being online more than I would have liked, but like they both have, I'm embarrassed to say, but they both have a computer for school. My daughter she just turned 7 and my son's 9. Like, granted, they didn't have them when I was that age, but the fact that they both know how to navigate Zoom and they know how to go on Google Meets is a bit crazy.
Yeah, I know that's definitely a huge adjustment. Friends of mine that have kids like school age, and they're just like, before this, it's like they didn't even use a computer, like, or laptop at home.
We were really strict about screen time, and they're like, all right, we'll do the best we can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So this is really awesome that you have been able to transition your brand and your company, and now anyone can access it. What's like the name of your online programs that, people listening can go check out? Because that would be awesome to be able to, share this with the community and have them check it out.
Great. Well, I'm still doing classes online. So, and again, even when I'm in the studio, they're going to be online. So they can go to our website, prenatalyogacenter.com, sign up for class, and make sure they say hi if they heard about classes from this podcast. I'd love to know that so that I can give them a special hello. So yeah, prenatalyogacenter.com. They can find our live classes. We also do re-release. So if it doesn't fit their schedule, they can still take that day's class on their own time. I do have a little package of 4 classes that if they just want to have those, they can get that from our website as well. All of our workshops are online. My podcast is called Yoga Birth Babies. And then if anybody is also interested in teacher training, or they're just an advanced practitioner, or not in advance, if they just want to learn, okay, what do I do if I can't get to a prenatal class and they have a regular class and they just want to know some safe modifications and the anatomy behind it, then I have a course called Who's Afraid of the Pregnant Yogi? And then I have a follow-up one called Teaching the Postnatal Student. And then if anyone is a yoga teacher and they're really getting thirsty for this knowledge and they want to serve the perinatal community, I do an 85-hour prenatal yoga teacher training several times a year. For the next 2, the early and late fall, they'll be online. And then we're back in person. I'm really excited about that come 2022. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I know. I'm still thrown off by year, like the year. Like
I feel like we lost a year.
Yeah. And I was just telling someone the other day, I was like, I still in my mind think it's 2020. But then you say it out loud and you're like, oh, wait, no, it's not 2020. We don't want to live that again. But yeah, it's totally thrown off. I think we totally missed that. So for anyone listening that like saying like, oh, this sounds good, I'm not sure, I'm like a yoga person, like what would you kind of tell them just to kind of share a little bit more or convince them or just tell them a little bit more about the benefits?
Sure. I think just knowing that when they step on the mat, it's a time for themselves. I call it my mental vacation when I take a break, when I get on the mat, because I'm so concentrated on the poses that my mind is not going to my very endless to-do list. So you get that mental vacation. You also get that chance to really connect in with your body and your baby. And as I was talking before, the asana can really help mentally prepare you for birth, because we never know how birth is going to unfold. I'm always saying, like, don't think, okay, this is the path I'm going to get. Even if someone's like, I'm having pain medication, yes, do it. But what if you get it? What if you can't get it right away? What if your birth's really quick? What if it doesn't work? 10% of epidurals don't work. So just having all these tools to help you have the birth that serves you, I think is priceless. So we've got coping skills, we've got pain management, we've got relaxation techniques, feeling better in your body. And then ultimately, can we set your body up to really stack the cards in your favor that things internally are balanced? So if you are having a vaginal birth, baby's in a good position, chin can be tucked in the chest, it can descend and rotate, and birth often will not be as long as when the pelvis and pelvic ligaments and muscles are balanced. So I think a more functional birth and a more comfortable birth and being confident for your birth, I think those are probably the top benefits. I've never met anyone that's like, yeah, bring it on long and arduous. Make it hurt. So,
Right.
stress me out. So yeah, finding that sense of confidence, because again, we don't know what birth's going to look like. But if you can be confident that you've done the work and you have the tools, you'll be ready to zig and zag however birth zigs and zags.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we just talked in one of our Facebook meetups about self-care and giving yourself that time, and that it is different for everyone, but a lot of times we don't even give ourselves those few minutes. So I love that you say it's a mental vacation to listen to your body, and I think that's so powerful to do.
Thank you.
So, well, this was awesome. I think like I learned a lot. I think our audience will learn a lot from this, and definitely everyone needs to go check you out and check out different classes you offer. But I always like to end these interviews with fun thinking questions, I call them. And so if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
You need to respect yourself and have your boundaries. And I think that's for everything. I feel like a lot of parents can be, oh, yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do that. And it's something I've worked hard showing my kids, that I have boundaries and I respect myself. And that way they can recognize that and hopefully model it, that they have boundaries and they respect themselves. Yeah, I think
love
that's
that.
it.
I love that, because I feel like we always feel like saying yes is the best thing. But I always tell like my friends, I'm like, every time you say yes to everyone else, you're saying no to yourself. You're not giving yourself that break. So I love that. That's awesome. And so one more time again, where can moms find you, follow you, check out everything you do?
All right, they can. I'm on Instagram. I've recently got into Reels. I'm having so much fun with them.
I love Reels. I love them. So
At first,
fun.
I'm like, I'm not going to do that. They're silly, and I'm like, oh my god, these are so fun. And then I'm like, what music can I use? And it's really, and it's funny because I think when you get to follow someone and you listen to their music, you get a sense of who they are. Like I throw in musicals, like I have music from the 80s. So at Instagram, I'm at Prenatal Yoga Center, Prenatal Yoga Center. Facebook, Prenatal Yoga Center. I know, very original name. And our website is prenatalyogacenter.com. And my podcast is Yoga Birth Babies. I think those are all the places. And I think I'm on YouTube. I don't think I have some free videos on YouTube. I'm not super active on there. And again, that's Prenatal Yoga Center. So.
It's always easy when it's the same across the board, I'll tell you, like, then people can easily, click around and find you. And of course, like, you can send me all the links and stuff too. And I'll put it all in the show notes for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. This was really informative and really awesome to have you. Hey guys, if you found this or any episode of Mom Talks with Krista helpful, please like, comment, subscribe, and of course, share it with your friends. We release new videos every single Wednesday, and our new podcast is out every single Thursday. So lots of different ways you can catch us. And of course, if you're not following us on our socials, go ahead and follow us there. We've got tons of new content for you every single day. And finally, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you're doing a great job. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.